I'm Brant Macleod of the Clan Macleod.
And I'm Christopher Macleod of the Clan Macleod.
And it all began 31 years ago.
In the Highlands of Scotland.
Or in a movie theater or on a VHS tape near you.
What the bloody hell is a VHS tape? What does VHS even stand for?
I don't know. It's some box with a tape in it that people used to stick in a TV and watch.
What's wrong with you people?
I don't know, but once you have all the answers, I change the questions.
You're a wrong Scotsman!
That's right. That's something totally different. This is There Can Be Only One.
You got that right, laddies.
Here we are, born to be kings. We're the princes of the universe.
All right, so welcome to the inaugural episode of There Can Be Only One. This is the 0 episode of the brand new podcast, and if you haven't figured it out by now, this is all about Highlander.
And if you haven't figured all this out by now, I'm not Scottish, really.
You're Italian, so
I'm Italian.
You do a better Scottish accent than I do, and I probably have, I don't know what I have. I'm a Heinz 57. But anyway.
The irony behind it all is Highlander came out on the year I was born, so maybe that's why I'm Scottish.
There you go. That's right. So, if you're not familiar with the Highlander franchise, it's obviously it's been film, it's been TV show, and very soon it's going to be comic, and we'll be talking about that later. But the very first movie, Highlander, came out in 1986, which was 31 years ago, and
now you can
sparked it all.
age me.
Yeah.
Now you can age me. You know how old I am now. Well, almost. I'm not 31 yet.
Yeah, not quite. I'm older than you, and they can't age me because I didn't tell how old I was when it came out. So we won't go there. Anyway. So the very first movie came out in 1986, and Chris and I are big fans of Highlander. Mm-hmm. You know, we both saw I think we've seen all the movies, or at least most of them.
I've seen every single one except for the very, very last one with Duncan.
Okay. I think the same for me. I might have seen that last one.
It was a straight-to-VHS movie.
Yeah, I think I might have seen it. It might have not VHS. What do you know? Straight to VHS.
I'm sorry. Now I'm stuck with the intro. It was a straight-to-DVD movie.
Yeah. They might have shown it on Sci-Fi.
Maybe. I think maybe. Yeah, you're right.
If they did, I saw it. I don't remember.
What does VHS stand for? Video Home
I have
System?
no idea.
I don't know, but it was the things before DVDs came out.
Yeah.
Twice before Blu-ray.
Did you ever watch anything on Betamax?
No.
I did.
The hell's Betamax?
It was a VHS wannabe, pretty much. My aunt had one, and when I was a kid, we watched a couple of things on it.
Never heard of that. That's not.
VHS stands for Video Home System, by the way.
I thought so. I was right.
Yeah. So, anyway, back to Highlander.
And not VHSs, which are clearly outdated twice over.
Exactly. So Highlander had several movies and a TV show, like we already mentioned. The original movie starred Christopher Lambert, Sean Connery, Clancy Brown, and Roxanne Hart. Came out March 7th, 1986, and sparked this entire, cult favorite, property that Chris and I both eventually fell in love with.
Oh, yeah. I found the TV series first.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
And then soon after, I found the movie series, which it was bad because if you start with a TV series, you don't understand that Duncan wasn't the first to be part of the Clan Macleod, so to speak, when it comes to the Highlander franchise.
Yeah. Of course, Connor was in that first episode.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. So you kind of get a little tie in there, but you're, like you said, you're a little bit lost. I had heard of Highlander, obviously, but when I found the TV show first too and went back and watched the first two movies that started it all. And the first two movies, let's be clear here, are better than the last movies.
Yeah, they tried to. I will get more into it, but let's just say they tried to pass the torch with movie 3 to 4, and while the character is somebody we love, the writing for the story wasn't.
Yeah, it just wasn't quite the same.
And we're never going to talk about the other spin-off with the Raven character.
I don't even. I barely remember that.
I never watched it.
I'm not even sure if I did. I don't think I did either. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about the TV series before we get into and basically. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. This podcast. I have an echo now. This show was brought to you because IDW announced that they were doing a comic based on Highlander, and that comic actually comes out this week. As you're hearing this week is when the comic comes out, the very first issue, and so we were like, you know what? Both of us are Highlander fans. And we're excited about this comic. We want to check it out. Why not do a podcast talking about all things Highlander? So the comic brought us together, but we're going to be talking about everything Highlander.
Yeah, and there are rumors. There are rumors to either a movie or a TV series that will be bringing back Connor. And also with IDW, let's put it this way. Anytime they start a miniseries, 99.9, let's say 90% of the time, it becomes a full-fledged ongoing, because they did that with Back to the Future, they did that with Ghostbusters, and they did that with another franchise that's now an ongoing series. I forgot which one, but there's a few, but now all of their minis are ongoing. So Highlander, if it sells well, they're going to keep doing an ongoing.
Yeah, and not to mention that the IDW is pretty smart about picking properties that not only have crossover appeal and not only have a fan following, but also that are probably going to get back to the big screen or small screen pretty soon. Like, they picked up X-Files, and look what, the miniseries came out. Ghostbusters, the new movie came out, so on and so forth. So it's, I'm not saying definitely
Ghostbusters.
No, but I'm not saying that Highlander movie is going to come out in the next year or two. I'm not even going to make that claim, because we know it's been in talks for a while, a number of years actually. But it's very possible that they know something we know. So,
well, that's why they probably grabbed the contract.
Exactly. So it's going to be very interesting to see what this comic is all about. We're very excited about it, and that's going to be kind of the central focus of this show. This is after the next episode. This show is going to go monthly. Right. This is the 0 episode, so we'll be doing one more episode next week after the comic has released, so we can talk about that. And then from then on, we'll do it monthly. But that doesn't mean that we're only going to talk about the comic, like I said. Throughout the course of this show, sometimes we might go back and rewatch one of the films or a couple of episodes of the show, because it is on Hulu, the entire series. And then we'll talk about that. We'll talk about a certain arc in the series or something.
There were a few arcs in the TV series I wish they'd release it as a complete DVD/Blu-ray set. I'd love to own it. I know they did do it, but it was for a very limited time. I'm sure I could find it on eBay or something, but I'd love to have a DVD set of the TV series more than the movie series. I think the movies you can find on DVD easy, but it's the TV series you can't. Yeah,
absolutely. I was much more a fan of the TV show. I prefer Duncan to Connor, even though those movies, like we said, we'll get to those eventually. But there were 6 seasons of the Highlander TV show. It ran from 1992 to 1998, starring Adrian Paul, Stan Kirsch, and Jim Burns. And I love the some of the things that they introduced in the TV show, like the Watchers. And I love the fact that it was this mystery kind of suspense thriller thing. And sometimes it was like, okay, which immortal's going to come out of the woodwork this week and challenge Duncan. That's going to happen in a show like this. It happened in Smallville a lot.
Also, but one thing that I liked with Highlander was there were, like you mentioned, the Watchers. There was an arc that was specifically about the Watchers and about
Yeah.
you know how there's a Watcher for every immortal, and it's really interesting that if that happened today, 2-1, there would be like an Illuminati that follows the immortals as well.
Oh yeah, totally. And I love also the aspect that they put in there where the news reporters were starting to figure things out and
Right,
they knew
yeah.
that something was going on, and I love that aspect of it as well. Especially again, if you brought that back in our current culture, that would be such. It was almost like this show was a little bit before its time
Yeah, basically.
with things like that.
And
Yeah.
the TV show, just when you got comfortable with it, I
Mm-hmm.
remember things got switched up. If you remember, I don't want to get into specifics right now because
Yeah.
we will talk about it later. But the TV show did have a dramatic change. I think it was after season 2 or season 3. There was a like you thought you knew all the characters. This was the way the series was going to go, and then there's kind of like a twist of fate in the season finale,
Hmm.
and then they go off a different direction for a couple of years.
Right, exactly. Yeah, didn't they change locations too?
Yes, they did. They changed.
Yeah.
It started in New York, and then it ended up in
I think it was Paris.
Yeah, I think
exactly.
they ended up in Paris for a couple of years, and then I think they ended back in New York.
Yeah. And then, there's twists with certain characters like Richie.
Mm-hmm.
I was very happy with that.
I love that. That twist
Yeah.
was the best.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, there's so much to love about this TV show. If you guys have not checked this show out, you should go find it on Hulu and start it. Yes, it's a little dated because it was the early 90s when it came out. So, like, if you watch it on Hulu and you have a widescreen TV, which I found this out, it's not fit for a widescreen TV. So you got the big old black bars and everything. It's not quite HD quality, but it's still a fantastic show. And if you're a fan of the movies and you haven't seen the TV show, like I said, Connor's in that first episode, so you get that tie-in. And it's I love it.
I
personally.
think that first episode really set up for more movie 3 than anything else, because
Yeah.
it showed that hey, Connor and Duncan are from the same world, and I think Christopher Lambert did visit a couple of times on the series,
Yeah, he popped in from time to time.
but very
And so-
very rarely. It's kind of like, oh god, Nick Fury on S.H.I.E.L.D. It's like one of those moments every now and again.
Yeah, and a couple of times in the flashbacks as well.
Mm-hmm.
But in present day, it was like maybe 3-4 times tops, if I'm remembering correctly.
Right, about tops, it was 3-4 times,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
mostly, like you said, in flashback form, not in present day.
Yeah, but it was really cool that he was willing to do that and kind of tie into it and everything.
Well, let's be fair here. Christopher Lambert was more of a B-movie star, so it's not like you're getting,
Yeah, that's
somebody
true.
up there, somebody
Out-
really popular coming onto the show.
Right. Outside of Highlander and that first Mortal Kombat movie, that's pretty much his
Yeah.
career.
Exactly. I was going to say, other than that, for those of you that don't know Highlander, you probably know Christopher Lambert as Raiden from Mortal Kombat, and if you didn't watch
Yes.
Mortal Kombat or Highlander, you have no clue who we're talking about, and you're probably Googling it right now, so...
Exactly. Yeah, he's not known for much more than that.
He's
but
not around anymore.
what?
He's not even around anymore in the movies.
Yeah. So I'm curious what the last thing he did was, honestly.
And now Brant is using Google.
IMDb. He actually has a movie coming out. Actually, he has 4 movies in the works for this year. Believe it or not, they're all
coming
movies.
back.
Yeah, they're all movies you probably never heard of.
Okay, go ahead.
But let's see. He's got Dirty Cash,
No, thank you.
Kickboxer Retaliation.
No, thank
That's
you.
part of the Kickboxer franchise. Sobibor
Next.
and Chacun Sevi.
Chacun Savi. That's a Paris movie.
You know what? People might know him from this. He was actually a character on NCIS Los Angeles for a year. He did 6 episodes. So they might know Marcel Janvier.
Okay.
And he was Methodius in Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. So he has done a few things. Just nothing of note since Mortal Kombat. I don't
Nothing
think.
really that'll put him in the spotlight. Like if you say Mel Gibson, everybody has like a million references in their head already. One
Right.
being Scottish, Braveheart.
So Highlander.
Yes, back
That's
to
where you
Highlander.
know it from. Yeah, exactly.
But the TV series, there were a lot of really. My mother actually is the reason why I got into that. She loved Adrian Paul. She was the biggest fan of Adrian Paul, and that's what really his character is what brought her into the show and what kept her watching.
Yeah.
She was never a fan of the movies either. She was not a movie fan at all. She actually started watching it on TV just like me. And honestly, I think we caught the last couple of seasons as they were aired, but season 1 through like 4, we caught on like repeats and stuff. And she watched it. And honestly, what brought me in was that intro. And at the time, I was a kid, so I'm like, I didn't know who Queen was. So I'm hearing this song, I'm like, wow, that's the Highlander intro. And it's like, no, that's Queen's Princes of the Universe. And it's like, it all ties into something in my past because I love Queen now also. But I fell in love with the series because of the swords. I'm not a gun person. Anybody who knows me, whoever has talked to me knows I don't like guns. Never did, probably never will. One day might end up having to have one, but till then, I am a lover of swords. I love swords. I've always wanted, if anybody wants to know the one thing I've wanted since I was a kid and would love to get as a present today, it would be Duncan MacLeod's katana sword. I've wanted that. Since I was a kid, I've wanted Duncan's sword. The first sword I ever got as a kid was a standard red and black samurai sword, followed by an anime sword, followed by Link from Legends of Zelda sword, and then after that, I think... Yeah, that's it. That's all I have. Michael got... we accidentally did a double order and got 2 of the same red and black katana swords, so that's all we have. But I would kill to get a Duncan or Connor or no Connor Highlander sword. I'd love to get those katanas. That was the one thing I wanted as a kid and I never got. Unfortunately.
So I think you like swords.
I love swords.
Okay. Now that we're through
sword fighting, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. Now that we're through with Chris's sword collection here,
I'm sorry. I love swords and the art of sword fighting. It's an art. It's a form all its own, and it just interested me really a lot.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And it's funny because my mom actually she kind of had a little mini crush on Adrian Paul, and she watched it too.
Everybody had mini crushes on Adrian Paul. That was the female.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it was the sword fighting that brought me into, and then just the kind of sci-fi aspect of it. Because one thing we didn't talk about was the premise of Highlander.
Right.
And basically, there are certain people that are brought back. Once they die, they come back and they are immortals. And it only happened. It doesn't happen to everybody in this world. It only happens to certain people, and you don't know why. You never know why.
They're just chosen. It's part of the quickening.
Yeah, they're part of the quickening. They're chosen. And the statement, and the reason we call this podcast "There Can Be Only One" is because that's the reality in the Highlander franchise, in the Highlander universe, is that ultimately there can only be one immortal that receives the power of all of these and receives the quickening once they're the final one left.
Did you ever get what the quickening was? Because I always thought it was basically he's the last one and then he finally dies. That's the quickening. He dies because he's beaten them all. He is the one. And the quickening is that he dies with all of the knowledge and strength from all the other immortals.
It's okay. There are religious undertones, obviously. Like they can't fight on holy ground. That's like, they'll pretty much it starts like earthquakes and everything. You try to fight on holy ground. So there's definitely religious undertones to this. And my assumption is that in this universe, it's kind of God's will, and He chooses these people or some force. Some supernatural force is choosing all these people to be immortals for whatever reason. And then at the end, this quickening is kind of a caller to a higher purpose, call to a higher purpose, or like a transcendence, something like that. And that's basically when they kill each other, and you can only kill them by beheading them. When they kill each other, they receive that immortal's powers.
Right.
So,
and memories and their skills.
Right, exactly, and their skills. So the more you kill, the more skilled you are and the more deadly you are.
But
and,
you're talking about it, and you make it sound like a gift. There is, and I love how the show did this. It's a gift and a curse. The immortality,
exactly.
for example, it's a gift and a curse because whenever you die, that's the age you stay. So if you die as a baby, as a boy, a young boy, like a 7-year-old boy, you're going to stay a boy. You don't grow up anymore. That's it. And there was a boy in the TV series, which it was really cool that they did that. Yeah. If you kill a lot of evil, and they did, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's a whole story arc, but there's a premise to, if you kill a lot of evil and you take a lot of evil in, it ends up overwhelming you at a point.
Yeah, and I also love, you mentioned how, you stay the same age and whatever. They touched on this a lot with Duncan, that he fell in love several times over his 400 years, and he, obviously they grow old and they die, and he loses people left and right, and it scars him and it changes him. But he's such a passionate person that he keeps finding people that he cares about, but he keeps them, at a little bit of a distance. He keeps a wall up because he knows eventually he's going to lose them too. And I love the way that they touched on that.
Except one girl, which it kind of plays into movie 3.
Yeah, very true.
We won't touch on yet, but there is a girl that he tries to, real brief, he tries to do the immortality thing with her, and it freaks her out.
Yeah, exactly. So, moving on to the comic, because that's, we're going to be talking about that very soon.
Yes.
I just want to talk about the premise of the comic, and it's called Highlander: The American Dream. And it's, like you said, it's a miniseries for now. We'll see what happens.
They'll probably switch it to Highlander, take off the American Dream later, and keep going with it.
And this goes back to Connor's story. This follows Connor Macleod as he navigates the American Civil War in the 1950s, and it moves towards the gathering in the 1986 movie. And that's kind of where it's going to end, I guess.
Okay,
and then,
so it's a setup for the
first movie.
Okay.
Exactly. So that it's very interesting. It's a prequel, and that's going to be interesting as we talk about that. We can start talking about that and then go into the movie and the TV series and stuff.
Right.
So it'll be a nice little journey that you can take with us.
Well, one thing I liked was Connor was always considered the first because of the movies, and especially because the fanfare really sided with Duncan towards the end of the TV series. That I love how they kind of acknowledge that with the movies, because remember, there can be only one, so there can't be a Connor and Duncan. You knew at some point they were going to have to fight, and what they did to resolve that was, I thought it was perfect without making anybody the bad guy.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
But I loved it. I thought the concept of Highlander has always interested me. Obviously, the swords. Yes, I'm a boy. I was a boy when I watched it. The swords are the reason. I mean, I can't lie and say, oh, it was just the story. No, the swords are what brought me in. The stories what kept me. The movies, the first 3, are what really, solidified my love for the Highlander series. Unfortunately, after the 3rd movie, things kind of started to fall thin, and I think that this comic and the hush-hush rumors about not, I guess, a reboot. I don't want to say a reboot because I could be wrong, but the hush-hush talk about there being more Highlander, whether it be in TVs or movies, especially the way they've been going with Highlander, a reboot wouldn't be such a bad idea, and this is coming from somebody who hates reboots. But I really think the franchise, especially in today's day and age, would be a really popular series if it came back again in some shape or form. Yeah.
I looked up the Quickening, and I wanted to explain it.
Okay.
Adrian Paul actually explained the Quickening, and he said, "The Quickening is the receiving of all the power and knowledge another immortal has obtained throughout her life. It is like the receiving of a sacrament or a massive orgasm."
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the producers of the TV series said the power of the Quickening is the equivalent of a major electrical storm hitting. Windows explode, lights short circuit. It is almost as if the victorious immortal is in the center of a lightning storm.
You know what we never talked about?
What's that?
How an immortal kills another immortal.
I mentioned it, beheading.
Yep. And, another curse. If you lose a limb or a finger or anything, it doesn't grow back. So an immortal that goes around, let's say he loses his arm, it doesn't grow back.
Right,
He will
yeah.
live the rest of his immortal life without an arm. But he cannot die until his head is severed from his body.
Right, exactly. And they played on that a little bit too, here and there.
Mm-hmm. But cuts heal. Like little minor cuts, major, obviously because they're immortal, they could literally die from like a bullet wound and then they heal. So it's kind of like, it's the Wolverine syndrome, but without the ability to grow limbs. And Wolverine couldn't either. He had to reattach his arm in order for it to heal. I guess the same premise for Immortals. I guess if they try to reattach their limbs that they lost, it might. They never tried that. They never tried that in the series, so it was never confirmed or denied. But as far as little minor cuts and bruises, and if they got shot or killed, they would come back as long as their head was still attached to their body.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and I like the way that the TV series did go. It looked back into the past of Duncan here and there. It was, if you want to liken it to something, you can liken it to Arrow, the way it flashbacks to Island. But I think Highlanders was done better.
Highlander was more interesting because Duncan was 400 years old. That's 400 eras worth, 400 years of evolution and growth. So you can go all the way back to when he was a barbarian in Scotland, a warrior actually. He was a warrior in Scotland to, and he traveled all around the world. So it could be England in the 1920s. It could be Italy in the 1700s. Anywhere at any time he could have been. And I love how they kind of really played up the era, that time era. In the flashbacks, honestly, were a really strong backbone of the show because they always had a flashback each episode. And each episode, it was a different era, a different time in his life. And I love how they always made him look so different. Like I remember when he was in England, he had like the bowler hat and he had like that handlebar mustache. And it's like, dude, so different.
Yeah, and I think he was there during the Civil War, the American Civil War.
Yes.
And, different things like that. And it's interesting because it's like some of the flashbacks will be to immortals that he's encountering in the present day and how they, either were friends or enemies back then or different things like that. Or sometimes it'll be, a woman that he loved and he's flashing back because, of something that's happened in the present. It all ties together. But like you said, it's really cool to see him in the different eras.
One immortal I liked from the TV series was Mythos, because I guess he had a lot more experience than Duncan. You never get his background, which is what I like, because it left the mystery of who this person is. But he was super intelligent, super smart. I think he lived a lot longer than Duncan, but Duncan used him as an advisor. And I think he was a peace person at that point. He didn't fight.
Yeah, he was a priest, right? At some point he was.
At some point he was, but then he stopped. But he didn't. Basically, when you see him in the TV series and all throughout the TV series, he doesn't fight anymore. He only fights in self-defense. Otherwise, he does not involve himself in the quickening, or there can be only one. He doesn't bother with that. I guess the Immortals kind of know, no matter what, there will never only be one, and Richie's a perfect example of that. Immortals are born every day, like not every day, but every 100 years there are more immortals that join the group of immortals. So there never truly is going to ever be one. And I think that was another point to the show that they did, but they did it subliminally, is as much as there's the quote, there can be only one, more and more immortals keep popping up. So honestly, it's like a forever battle. It's an immortal battle as well, because there never will be only one.
Yeah, and see, that's one thing I didn't like about the third movie, was that they tried to end it, basically.
Yeah.
To have there be only one, but then it obviously you can't stick to that. So, like you just said, so it was kind of a lark. I didn't like the way that ended just because of that. It was a false story, really. So.
It was, and then if you watch the uncut version, an immortal that dies in the movie doesn't really die. She actually ends up being at the end of the movie with him. See, that's why I got really pissed, because the uncut version is the version that obviously they went with, because the fourth movie, enough said, because I didn't see the character in the fourth movie,
right,
in the trailer. So, I don't know. Okay. Third movie, there was a lot of flub ups.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Absolutely.
of flub-ups.
Yeah. So, needless to say,
that. We'll get
Yeah.
into that when we literally focus on the third movie.
right. Needless to say, we're pretty passionate fans about Highlander.
Oh yes, I
If you
grew up
can't
with it. I
tell.
loved it. I loved it from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, when we heard about this comic coming out, it was like, this is perfect. We got to do this. We got to do this show.
Yeah, I think I came to you with it. I think I said, "Hey, Brent, did you know that they're bringing out a Highlander comic?" Because you had told me before that you liked we had a whole conversation once about how much we loved Highlander, and I was like, "Dude, they're bringing a comic out." You're like, "Really?" And that's when the whole talk of this podcast happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I came up with the idea to do the podcast for it. But that, it was just like a no-brainer because it was like, this is something that you and I both were big fans of, and, it's perfect. So here we are. And we would love to hear, if you're a fan of Highlander, we would love to hear your comments, your thoughts, any questions you'd like to ask us, anything you'd like us to discuss, any certain episodes or a certain movie you'd like us to discuss. We'll definitely take that into consideration. You can email us, zone4podcast@gmail.com.
Comment us on, this is going on Comic Frontline, right?
Yeah. All the Zone 4 shows go on Comic Frontline and eventually on iTunes as well.
Right. So you can comment us there. I have a lot of stuff I need to go back and rewatch, and recommendations will definitely help me narrow down what to watch and remember what to watch or what I remember.
As much as I think we'd both love to sit there and binge all 6 seasons, time doesn't quite allow that, unfortunately. I mean, we could very slowly, and maybe we will very, very slowly and eventually, but we would love to just focus on certain arcs or certain episodes and stuff like that. So we're very open to suggestions on that.
Yes, definitely. And hopefully they'll bring back a TV series. If they bring back a TV series, obviously we'll follow it, starting with episode 1. If they bring back a movie, we'll obviously have a show dedicated to the movie. But
of course, yeah. Did you ever watch I didn't even remember that this existed, but did you ever watch the animated series?
I knew it existed, but no.
Okay, I didn't either. I
didn't hear
completely
good things
forgot.
from it. I didn't hear good things about it. That's why I didn't bother.
Yeah. Okay. I'm curious now, anybody that's listening, if you ever watched it. It aired in 1994 was the very first episode, I believe.
Yeah, it aired in the middle of Highlander, and I think it only lasted for a year or two, and then it ended.
Right, exactly. So, it obviously didn't do too well then.
It might have been before its time. Let's see if kids nowadays, they probably would eat it up.
Yeah, maybe they'll make a new one. Let's see. I don't even know what it was about. Did it have? I think it had Connor in it, at least at the beginning.
I never watched the series.
Yeah.
I honestly just knew it existed. I never watched it.
Yeah. It lasted for 2 seasons.
I was right, 2 years.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, maybe we'll touch on that if we can find it somewhere on the internet.
Did you know that there was a video game?
No.
Highlander, The Last of the Macleods was released on the Atari Jaguar CD.
And this is why I had no clue about it.
Exactly. That's hilarious. All right, so that's a pretty good introduction for what this show is going to be all about. You've kind of heard us kind of gush about different things, different elements of Highlander, and that's basically what we're going to be talking about in this show. Like I said, the very first episode, obviously this is 0 episode, the very first official episode will be next week after the first issue comes out this week, and then monthly from there. So,
yeah, it's going to be, I'm going to have a lot of fun doing this because I haven't watched Highlander in forever, so this is a good quote-unquote excuse to watch a little bit of Highlander again.
Absolutely.
And I'm just glad that it's on people's, in people's mouths again a little bit. People are talking about it again because for a long time, I think the last time I actually had a conversation, not counting the conversation we had about Highlander, the last time I actually talked Highlander to anybody outside of the internet was when the third movie dropped for a little while and talking about how it was cool that Duncan and Connor had that, crossover and how it could be maybe the start of the series starting up again, and unfortunately it wasn't. So it's been a long time. I never even talked about the fourth movie. I never even watched the fourth movie, to be honest. I should. I really should, because I don't know. You know, people said it was not good, but you know, everybody's a critic until you watch the movie for yourself, and then you realize, holy crap, everybody's wrong.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see your opinion. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say whether it was good or bad. If you decide to watch it, we'll talk about it.
Oh, joy. Now that you're saying, but see, there are friends that know more than others, and hearing Brant even talk like that is like, oh.
I might rewatch it. I'll join you. How about that? I'll rewatch it, and we'll talk about it at some point.
Okay, that's fair.
But we hope you've enjoyed this introduction to There Can Be Only One. We're really excited about this. Hope you guys are too. We've been teasing this on Twitter and just in videos and stuff for a while, and it seems like some of you out there have caught on to it and have gotten excited about it as well. So we welcome you to join us on this journey through Highlander, through the Highlands of Scotland, and beyond.
And beyond that, yes.
And beyond that.
Scotland.
Yeah.
Although I would like to visit Scotland. Anybody in Scotland want to bunk me in for a couple of days? I mean, I'd like to go see Scotland.
It would be nice. It would be very nice.
I need a passport first, though.
Right. But that's going to wrap up this episode. Mm-hmm. So definitely tune in to the next episode. There Can Be Only One, episode 1, coming to you very, very shortly.
And we promise no lightning will strike you through your computer.
We can't promise that.
There will be no orgies involved with lightning. I promise.
Yeah, well, okay, we can pretty much guarantee that, but we can't guarantee lightning's not going to strike your home or your computer.
No, do not take any. If you're watching it during a thunder and lightning storm, hey, bud, you are on your own.
Yeah, we're not taking responsibility for that.
Nope.
And don't go beheading nobody. We're not advocating that either.
No. Killing is wrong. Even if it is to be the only one. Killing is wrong.
But again, you can reach us at Zone4Podcast at gmail.com. You can check out Zone4Podcast.com for more podcasts from Zone 4, including Zone 4 Airship 27. And very soon, the return of Hit Points under a new name. We'll be talking about that very soon. And some other podcasts and some other announcements, because in April, it's our 8-year anniversary for the main Zone 4 show. And, of course, you can find all of our shows on Comic Frontline on YouTube, youtube.com/Comic Frontline, where you can also find Chris and us weekly, Tuesday nights, on the Frontline Live show.
Yep. And you can also find my personal podcast, which is also part of the Zone 4 Podcast Network, the Dark Avenger Podcast. Right now it's on my channel, Dark Avenger C86, because I'm doing a YouTube Files run. There will be another run. I don't want to say much more than that, but there will be a actual podcast run outside of YouTube soon. But for right now, it's strictly on YouTube. Episode 2 is up as this is airing. Episode 1 went up last year. I've had a long gap between 1 and 2, but I'm hoping to not have such a big gap for the next episode. But episode 2 is up now. You can go check it out on my channel, which is youtube.com/Dark Avenger C86.
Absolutely. And follow Zone 4 on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and again, tune in very soon for the next episode of There Can Be Only One.
Explosions!
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
We've got to be the rulers of your world.
This has been a Gonzo Goose production. Honk!